I'm Sonya Morton-Firth and you're watching the Sonya Morton-Firth Show. Today my guest is Andy Coley. Andy is an international award-winning NLP trainer. He is also a speaker and coaches in resilience and leadership. Andy has been through a journey of transformation himself, from losing his dad to Parkinson's, going through a painful divorce, and getting to 23 stone in weight. This left him feeling a failure and contemplating ending his own life. Andy now helps shine a light on others and helps them through their dark times. Andy, thank you so much for being a guest on my show. It's great to have you here.
Thanks for letting me come along. I'm so pleased to be able to have a chance to chat to you. Yeah.
So Andy, tell me about your journey. I mean, you're one of the top trainers for NLP in the country. Why NLP? What started you down on that route?
I got involved with NLP about 10 years ago, I think. Probably that's when NLP first came into my life in terms of me finding out about it. I recognised that I needed to shift lots of things that were happening in my life. Lots of things had kind of really gone wrong, and at the age of sort of just coming up for 33, 34, I found myself in a position where I just hated where I was in my life. And I knew I had to make changes, and I had lots of stuff going on in my head, and all, when you go and get those inner voices and all all you can hear is the kind of critical bit, all the bit that's just shouting at you, saying all the things that you're doing wrong and have gone wrong, and all that kind of stuff. And I just had so much inner thoughts going on that I needed a way of kind of clearing it out.
What happened, or what was going on for you at that point?
Well, just around Christmas 2010, I just moved back home with my mum and dad. Back home to my family bedroom.
So how old were you at this point?
33.
You might have been a bit old to go back to your parents.
Yes, not exactly where I thought I was going to be at the age of 33. When you kind of map your life out when you're in your 20s, and you're going to get my job and have a marriage and do all these things,
have a lovely
travel the
house,
world. And no, it all went to a bit to shit really. So I moved back home with my mum and dad, who allowed me to kind of reset my life, because I'd had a couple of businesses that had failed and gone wrong, and my friends and family and other people had lost quite a bit of money in terms of it, money they'd kind of invested.
They'd invested
personally into the business. I also had my marriage of 11 years to my ex-wife that was coming to an end, and it kind of had come to an end whilst we were still just about talking to each other. We'd kind of done the living in separate bedrooms in our make-up house that we'd kind of got a couple of years before, where we thought, well, let's see if we can kind of make it work, and it just didn't.
So you must have met your wife when you were quite young then?
Yeah, I was in my sort of very early 20s when we got married. In fact, she was pretty much my first girlfriend.
So you married your first girlfriend. That's always like the love story that everyone talks about.
Well, okay, you call me a late bloomer. When I was growing up as a teenager, I was much more into scouts and activities, and I'd skipped the drugs and the girls bit, and kind of sort of found relationships and things became a little bit more important in my early 20s. And she was a friend of a friend, and we had a good marriage for several years. And a couple of things then happened. One was I got myself into quite a lot of debt. So I was working for myself. I was running my own web development company, and I was getting work, but I wasn't getting paid to the lifestyle that we had. And I was borrowing money off of cards and loans and other bits because I thought I could save. It was my job as the man to, be the white knight and come in and rescue and sort everything out. And it's okay, you can stop work and I can provide and do all this stuff. And I was putting more and more stress onto myself, and I didn't tell her anything about it. I kind of buried everything that was going on under this, basically sort of in this big box in my head, where I kind of stuck all the problems, and it was really, really, really destructive behaviours I was doing, like letters from the debt companies. I'd go home at lunchtime from where I was working, intercept the post, and go back to work.
Oh wow!
For the afternoon,
So there was a level of you were hiding things from your wife.
Absolutely, and I wasn't empowering her to help me because I was playing a script in my head that said, as soon as she finds out about all the stuff that's been going on, all the debt and everything, that's it, the marriage is over. My stuff's going to be in the forecourt, plastic bags, she's going to chuck me out, Dad's going to change the locks. I'd play through the scenario of telling her.
So in a way, you sort of without putting words in your head, do you think there was an element of sort of self-sabotage to the relationship? Or
yeah, there was, but I thought it was coming from a place of protection and wanting to make things better. You know, she'd had bad relationships before, and as people do, and I wanted to not make this one the same, and by not wanting to make it the same, I made it the same. You know, and kind of played through that scenario. And then something else that happened around the same time that she found out about this stuff. And you know, again, my parents lent me a lot of money to bail me out of the debt. And we kind of got the relationship a bit back on track, because when she found out about it, one, I wasn't there, I was away on a stag do in London, and got this phone call going, what the fuck? Yeah, I've just opened this letter, you know, our mortgage is 40 grand more than I thought it was going to be, and you know, what's these loans and all this, and I just thought, oh, you know, that's it.
It's probably
over,
not what
done.
you want to hear when you're just about to get
Not
lashed
really.
on the
Not
stag do.
And so my parents helped me, and we sorted it out, and we went to marriage counselling, and kind of the relationship was getting back on track. And then something else that happened exactly, you know, within a few months of that was one of our friends was due to give birth, so second baby. And at the time that happened, it's a couple of weeks before, and I'd spoken to her on the Friday, you know, let's go for a curry, and I was away for the weekend, and I got a call on the Sunday going, she's dead. You know, our friend's dead.
Oh my God.
Like, shit, what's happened? You know, how's the baby? And the baby's dead as well.
Did she die in childbirth?
So what happened was she got streptococcal in her throat, and then that killed the baby, and then the baby gave her septicemia. So we went from the sort of Thursday of that weekend before, expecting to go out for a curry with her to pre-birth curry, celebrate the baby arriving, and it's her second baby as well, to on the Sunday she was gone. And because of all the stuff that happened with the relationship and the finance and the trust element, because the trust had broken down, we just couldn't be there for each other. And again, when we needed to be there, just blew us apart. And you know, we had to go through lots of things about supporting our friend Paul, and you know, he had a 3-year-old to deal with on his own. At the same time, it had just lost another baby and his wife, and all sorts of stuff like that happened. And it was just a horrible, terrible time. She was only in her sort of mid-30s at the time herself.
Terrible. It's something that you wouldn't expect. That
really created the sort of a real blow in the relationship. And we moved house, and we, you know, tried a couple of other things. And then with this other business where I was just working 80, 100-hour week, you know, in that job to try and fix it and do things, get money in.
Were you enjoying that job? Was it a job that you enjoyed? Or?
Well, it was a startup that myself and a friend had done. You know, I had a web development background, so we thought we'd put together this social network, this social media place to be for people, but who geeks. Because I'm a bit of a geek. I'm a nerdy geek.
You geek at heart. I didn't know that about you, Andy.
So I've had this hobby for years and years called live role play, which is a kind of mixture of like Lord of the Rings crossed with Amdram. And so you dress up in costume and you run around the woods and hit each other with swords. And it's something I've done since I was in my teenage years. I've heard about
people that do that, actually.
You ever seen the film Role Models or any of those kind of things? It's not a very good portrayal, but for me it's very social. It was an outlet. It was a way of not being myself, which is, you know, not recognising that's what I needed at the time. So I set up the social network, because Facebook was relatively new. It had only been around a couple of years, for geeks. Yeah, anybody into video games and that kind of stuff. And we got a couple of £100,000 of investment from people and friends and family, and just didn't know how to manage the business properly. And had to make 10 people redundant and get rid of everybody and lose all that money. And
times,
so that was, again, that was all happening at that moment in time. And ultimately it came to that point where we just decided to just stop. Whilst we're still talking to each other, whilst we're still in a space where we can converse at least, let's just decide that we probably need to walk away from this relationship because it just isn't working. So that's what happened. Yeah.
And you moved back to your mum and dad's, and then what did you go through at that point?
Well, that was a really difficult time, you know, because I was really carrying this identity of I'm a failure, you're crap, you know, nobody in your family's ever gotten divorced, you know, I had lots of guilt, you know, people's money I'd lost, you know, other stuff that was going on, it's like repeating the same pattern. And all of those things were playing in my head, and I kind of very much had that I'm a failure, you're useless type thing, and also very much contemplating like what have I got to look forward to now? My whole life purpose, legacy, all of those things. We were fortunate, my ex and I wouldn't have kids or anything, it was just the two of us, and it was very much like, where do you go from here? You know, what's next? And I do remember one time sort of driving back home to the the house that we lived in, because it wasn't really a home by that point, you know, really contemplating driving along that road really fast and just flicking off and ramming myself into a tree.
So ending it all.
Yeah, because I just couldn't see, you know, what to do next.
And is this when you started piling on the weight? Is that when you started?
No, I was already very, sort of very heavy from that point of view as well. You know, the thing that stopped me piling myself into the tree was knowing how much I'd let my parents down. If that's what happened, that's the thing that stopped me. You know, that was enough to stop me from doing that. Because I kind of, you know, when you, I don't know if you do, but sometimes you play your own funeral through in your head. Just imagine the look of disappointment. I couldn't cope with how disappointed everybody would be.
Well, no, and that's what, it's good that you thought about that.
Like you say, I was heavy at the time. I was 23 stone. And I'd always sort of carried a lot of weight as a kid. And I think I was quite often stress eating, eating lots of chocolate.
I was going to say, was it a coping mechanism for some of the things?
I think, yeah, knowing what I know now, chocolate was happiness, chocolate was an emotion, chocolate was a thing, eating was, you know, as a lot of people get themselves into the pattern. And also working crappy hours, 100-hour weeks, bad diet, no exercise, all those kind of things really culminate. It's really easy to put weight on, it's very tough to lose it. And
I guess, I mean, did you have any self-esteem, because, you know, in terms of weight gain and just carry on, because you were 23 stone?
Yeah, 23 stone, so 142 kilos, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I like to look at you now, I wouldn't even imagine, and I've seen pictures of you, and I can't even believe it's the same person sort of sitting.
Yeah, and I struggled to see the same person now to how I saw then. It's really interesting, if you lose quite a dramatic amount of weight, it does take quite a while for you to see the new you in the mirror. You're expecting the old you. And at the time when I moved back home with my mum and dad, I was 23 stone and completely just like need to do a life reset. I still had my skills of web development, I still had that. But the one thing that I also started to get into was personal development. So a friend of mine had lent me some Tony Robbins CDs, Unleash the Power Within. And I just played that relentlessly. It was just on loop. It was in the car, it was in my headphones. I was playing it to go to sleep to shut these stupid bloody voices up.
What were the voices saying?
Oh, you were just hateful, horrible, the uselessness of it and all the things you've got to do and all the money that you owe people and all of these things, it was just constantly playing over that loop of, it's kind of like bile and hatred, and it was really fucked up, really. It's like our inner voice.
Our inner voice is pretty crap, really, isn't it? Let's
when it's really in inner critic mode. Our inner voice can be amazing as well, but when it's in that inner critic mode and really playing across that, all that stuff that if we externalized it and said it to a kid, we'd get arrested.
Do you think some people have got more of that inner critic? I mean, we've all heard the inner critic, but I think there are those people that maybe have heard it more or focus on it more.
I think.
Have you seen that?
I don't know whether or not we've got it more or less. I think one of the things I've learnt now is quite often what we do is we take on beliefs from other people and we take on things that we've been called and things that we've been told. And all of those things become our voice because we say them in our head. And it might be a society thing, like, kids should be seen and not heard. Or, that's not what a woman should do. And all this stuff gets absorbed and I think it then becomes our own mantras.
Especially at an early age, right?
Especially at an early age,
formed, in the first few years.
And so I had to start to shut those voices off and listening to things like Tony Robbins stuff. And there's a really good poster, the Holstein Manifesto. I don't know if you've seen it, which is just a series of words that really resonated with me where I was, and I put that poster up on a wall.
What's it called? The Holstein?
Holstein, Holstee, Manifesto.
Holstein Manifesto, okay.
And it's just all about the fact that, travel and live and laugh and, grow and, it's kind of positive affirmations. And I put it exactly where I would wake up and see it. And so, being back at my mum and dad's kind of gave me the chance to have a bit of a reset. And a few months after moving back in with them, I then went along to an intro day about NLP in London. Because the same guy that lent me the CDs had done some NLP training. In fact, he was a master practitioner of NLP. And he'd been doing coaching with me and just kind of helping out as a mate. And really started to allow me to kind of get my head into, right, what can you control? What can you do? So I started to focus on my health first.
And how did NLP help with that?
So it was all about recognising what strategies do I need to do? Like I'm using NLP to quite externally reference. So what other people say to me makes a difference.
Yes, yes.
So being in a group environment makes a difference. Having feedback makes a difference. So I went along to a group boot camp because when I'm on my own in the gym, I let myself off the hook. I don't work so hard.
Of course. Yes.
I recognise that when I used to play squash, for instance, I used to play squash with my dad. I loved playing squash with my dad because he was better than me. And doing stuff with people who are better than me drives me on.
Okay.
So because I recognise that, I found, I went along to a networking event I used to belong to, and I met this guy called Topsy. He was a ex-Royal Navy PT. And he ran these boot camps. He'd only been running them a year or two when I met him. And it was a group environment. And I was newly single, and there was lots of women there, and I thought it'd be a good
place to meet
opportunity.
people.
Yeah, and you know, I've never, you know, being 23, so never knocked my body confidence from that point of view. I was just wearing a lot of stuff on the outside. But actually, because I got into the exercise and I was being pushed, and I also paid him like 50 quid for the first thing. By paying 50 quid, I also got weighed. And I booked myself in then for 10 sessions. And because I committed energetically to this thing, and I got into a habit.
By putting the money down as well, you're committing energetically, and you're committing.
And I had time because nobody asked to tell me what to do with my time, or I had to ask for permission to go anywhere. And so I by doing and going to those boot camps, it really helped. And the first boot camp I ever went to, just before going to it, I had a tin of pineapple.
Shivers up my spine, boot camp.
I had a tin of pineapple and a cheese sandwich from the garage, because I thought that'd give me energy for the boot camp. And I almost blanked out after the warm out. I remember holding onto the bars in this sort of church hall thing, the school hall that we were using, and almost being blanked out. And the guy came out to me going, I don't know what you've done, mate, but you need some work, sort you out. And we've been mates ever since, because that was just, the camaraderie of that was so amazing. And so I got into the kind of the boot camp family, and I lost 32 kilos in 9 months,
Wow.
6.5 stone.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Because I was going and I was exercising, and I was also setting goals and being driven, and rather than trying to lose weight, I was looking to gain health. And
that's a very
you
interesting
get momentum,
fact, actually, and that's the changing language, isn't it? So it's not about losing weight, it's gaining health.
Exactly.
That's
When I'm coaching clients now in their health, it's which one motivates them more, because some people are motivated by pain. You know, sometimes something has to get bad enough that you have your had enough moment and you have to walk away.
So the health aspect and the NLP really helped you with losing the weight. Is that what drove you forward to go on and become a trainer? Yeah,
definitely, because you see those kind of before and after shots, and you think, oh, that's not the same person. Never, and I became that person, by setting goals and, having things to aim for and go for. Then suddenly, I started to recognise that I could change, and that it was all in my mind that needed to change first. NLP is not a magic weight loss formula for anybody who's going to think, I'm going to sign up for this. You have to put the work in. But when you're motivated, you put the work in.
Right?
Exactly.
It's the mindset.
Yeah. And, when you make your mind up, when you change your mind, all those expressions are very true. When you suddenly shift something that's going on up here, then all your behaviours can change. And I started to want more, because I'd been web developing for like 15, 20 years or so at that point. And I was just bored with it. I was just knocking websites out and doing it. And I kind of wanted my rest of my life job. And so I went along to like an NLP intro day and found out about, first of all, kind of, by day one, because it was a 2-day event. By day one, I wanted to be a coach. I thought, yeah, definitely, could see myself doing that. And by day two, I thought, you look like you're having a lot of fun up there. And fun is a high value for me.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I can relate to that one.
Yeah, and you look like you're having a lot of fun up there. And I also recognise that I can do so much more to light up other people by being the person on the stage than just coaching people. Yeah, because I can see, let's say, 5 or 6 people effectively in one day as a coach, but I can train a room with 100, 200 people in it, and that makes a big difference. So that drove me to doing NLP. I remember ringing up home going, Mum, Dad, is it all right if I don't pay you rent? Because I want to spend this, £800 a month on NLP training for a year. I know I still owe you money, and aside from all the other stuff, and I really know that I can get something, that I'd be good at doing this. Because I didn't recognise I was already coaching people in their businesses anyway. I was working with a lot of small businesses. And of course, if you're coaching a business, you're coaching an owner. And so I was coaching without giving it a label, without knowing what I was doing at that moment in time.
And what made you really think that NLP, I mean, was that a feeling you had? Was it something that your head said, yes, this is the path that you're meant to go on? Because like you say, it's very different to the web developing.
I think it's because I recognised from learning more about NLP that it treats everybody as an individual. It's not a follow this set plan or do these 7 things and it magically changes your life. NLP is all about how do you individually see the world and how is that created through your past and your memories and your decisions you made, and then what can you do to shape what comes next. You can learn from the past and you can let it go. It isn't like counselling. You know, I've tried counselling, I've done that, I didn't like it. It was unwrapping stuff that, was I making it up or wasn't I? Did it matter?
It's
not
very
really.
Past focus. I've done counselling as well, and
exactly.
it's very focused on the past.
So for me, it was everything else was too past focused, and NLP was very much about what comes next. And I teach NLP from a coaching perspective, not a therapy. I'm not a therapist, but it's really about learning from the past and not taking all that stuff forward into the future. And so that's why for me, I really got drawn to NLP. I've not learnt at that moment in time any other coaching methods. I've not, done the coaching schools or any of those things. For me, NLP was the thing that I wanted to start coaching with. And straight away from doing the practitioner course and a sort of small hypnosis course, I started working with clients and, started to make shifts and helping people stop smoking and all that kind of stuff. And I was just loving doing that. Yeah. And that at that point when I did my practitioner and then my master's and then my trainer's training all in 1 year, because I'm an all or nothing. I spent at least 100 days of that year learning NLP. I met Joe, my business partner, because we were doing the same courses together. We recognised that we're very much bounce off of each other, in terms of our approaches. They're different, and yet we share similar values about helping people and working with people. And so we set up a training organisation within a year or so.
And it's now award-winning. You're an award-winning NLP training business, which is fantastic. And we'll put the name of that in the notes if anyone wants to get in touch with you and wants to know more about the NLP. But how else did it change your life? Because I've heard there's other happy stories that have come from it.
So once I had looked at health, I sort of shifted in some of the other areas. Business was obviously changing because of the NLP stuff that I was doing. And relationships was another area. But the problem with doing these practitioner courses and running them, one, it's great because I'm on them, but two, you have to share and do things and commit to goals. Yeah. And I committed to all sorts of things like doing a triathlon, which I did 3 or 4 years ago. And,
congratulations.
Yeah, and I also focused on my relationship values, what was important to me about a relationship.
And what was important to you? Because you'd been through this painful divorce and painful marriage.
Yeah, and that was a few years before, and I've been in some other relationships, some shorter term and others longer. And I kind of was getting to know what was and wasn't working for me in that. First of all, I had to really get NLP, because some people saw NLP as a threat, like me evolving and changing my mindset and becoming more conscious of my unconscious. People kind of found threatening. So they needed to get NLP, personal development. Also recognised that family was important to me. I hadn't wanted a family, but I suddenly recognised that I did, if I had the chance.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Getting into my late 30s by this point.
Okay, so it's not like you're a spring chicken, but it's time to do something about it.
Exactly, and fun, and it had to be like a spark and a connection, something that really had to kind of get me and me them. And I was very lucky to get introduced to somebody. I'd been on a training course, been doing some training, and the trainer, the sort of day after the course, we were having a chat in a cafe about doing some work together, and she was going, you need to contact my friend Sophie. Yeah, I think you two need a coffee. And she basically match-made us. And Sophie lived up in London, and I sent her a message within a sort of week of being, mentioned it, and so well, your friend Caitlin says I should get to know
who you are, but
just Facebook messaging, and we went, if my mate Caitlin says, then we should. And actually we got chatting on Facebook and phone and all that kind of stuff, and a couple of weeks later we then met in person. Then I stayed the weekend, and I got to meet her son at that moment in time. He was 5, and her mum.
Wow, you went right in there in the deep end. Straight
in there. We'd already clicked by this point. We already actually knew there was that spark bit was there. And she's in this kind of world. She's actually a hypnobirthing teacher and a doula.
Wow.
So she empowers women to have confident, births, no matter what their circumstances. And And so she's also in this kind of sphere of personally developing herself
Yeah.
and evolving through her story and her life. And so, yeah, I became a stepdad. Not that long ago. We got married 3 years ago. And having our own family was something that we really wanted. In fact, Sophie was actually pregnant during our marriage, during the wedding. But we found out a few weeks after the wedding, having had an early scan, that it wasn't, there's something called a blighted ovum where you get the egg sac but no baby in there. So she was all the signs of pregnant, thought she was pregnant, but then she wasn't. So I had to have a sort of chemical miscarriage, if you like, take the tablets, and that was crappy.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like
you
that.
tell your friends, but you shouldn't tell your friends. And they always say wait for the 12 weeks.
But there was no actual baby there.
There was no actual baby there. And something else that kind of happened around that time is my dad was really poorly. So he'd had Parkinson's. We got that diagnosis sort of several years ago. And he wasn't able to make the wedding. And he was also getting to the point where he'd had a fall and he was being looked after at home, almost at that point palliative care. And I remember telling him about the pregnancy and that we were having the baby, and I remember seeing that kind of light in his eyes, that just sort of the happiness. But he never got to meet any of his grandkids. So, which really guts me, as you can tell, because he'd have made a great granddad.
But he's here, right?
Yeah.
He's there. I don't know what your beliefs are, but...
Yeah, and you always, people don't have to be in your life to know what they would have said. And him towards the end wasn't him. I remember when we're playing squash, or when he was in the Navy, and when he in his uniform and getting his MBE from the Queen, and all these amazing things. This role model that was my dad. Yeah, that wasn't him at the end, but that was certainly him in that process. And so we lost that baby that wasn't really a baby, but she was still pregnant. But thankfully, a couple of years ago we had another baby, Megan, who arrived at terminal velocity, almost, in our bathroom, just me and Sophie, no midwives around, just the two of us. We had planned to have Megan at home, but the midwives had gone home because they thought everything had slowed down, and then as soon as midwives had gone and Fred had gone to school, boom, half an hour later.
Amazing.
She's here.
Amazing.
Dropped in the most important catch I think I ever made. Yeah, just to go from those sort of 8 years ago, or 10 years ago, with all that crap that's happening, and life and family and all those kind of things. Family is really important to me. And to now have that family, I'm just so blessed because of that.
It's a complete transformation, Andy. It really is. So where do you see yourself going? What is your legacy? What do you want to continue doing now?
Well, for me, the key element of what I do is about enabling people to know that they can change their lives. They
really can, and you're the
that
living
thought
proof
process,
of it.
yeah.
But
not just to be the living proof of it, because I still think people are sceptical when they see you talk about your, what maybe has gone on in your life, and they go, oh, but I can't do that because of this. And it's getting past what's the small steps, what's the tiny incremental tweaks, because you don't go from, losing 32 kilos overnight.
No, of course.
It is 1 grain, 1 gram, half a pound. It is one change of thought process. Is
there anything, if you were talking to our audience now, is there one little thing that they could take that would be, if they were in a bad place or going through some sort of adversity, that you would say, this is maybe something you should think about doing? Or
I think the key thing is, one, externalise it, get it outside of yourself, write it down, right, and talk about it, as a thing or a problem. Yeah, and then recognise, what advice would you give yourself? If it's your friend coming to you, and they'd written this stuff down, and they'd written you a letter with all these things in, what advice might you give them? Or who are the gurus that you might go to, or even the people that are here or not here? I still can ask my dad for advice even though he's not here, and I know what he might say about this, that, or the other.
That's really nice.
What advice might they give about what you could do? And also focus on what you want rather than what you don't want. So many people focus on their don'ts rather than their do's. So a great question to ask yourself is, what would I like to have happen?
Yes.
Because that enables you to start to set a goal and an outcome, because things, you can picture how bad things might get, which is very different to having to be there, and also getting put towards a goal. Be on purpose. Have that purpose. You need to start to train your brain into noticing the things that it wants rather than what you don't want. This area of your brain, the reticular activating system, It's the bit of the brain that you starts to notice similarities and differences, and it's the bit of the brain that's activated by things like the law of attraction.
Yes.
You know, putting your vision boards up, saying your affirmations. Like, tell yourself what you want. Because if you keep telling yourself what you don't want, you notice all the don'ts.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
and that's
it's just simple things like that. Getting it outside of yourself and focusing on your to-dos, you know, and then go, right, what one thing can I do to start to get this towards a step? Tiny changes make a big difference.
So focus on the to-dos and
Yeah.
the positives rather than the negatives.
Yeah.
Andy, we're running out of time.
I
I feel
know.
like I could talk to you forever. And we've probably reached my last question, which I ask all my guests, and is if you were to write a message in a bottle to be found by future generations, what would that message be?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? I think the key thing is listen to your instincts, your intuition. Learn to love it and trust it.
I love it.
Yeah.
Andy, thank you so much for being a guest on my show.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Great to
you.
be here. Thank you.
Hope you enjoyed the show. Remember, there's a new interview out every Monday, so hit subscribe and like, and you'll get it straight into your inbox.